Good morning, everybody. My name is Ahmed Rehab, A-H-M-E-D, R-E-H-A-B, the Executive Director of the Council on American-Islamic Relations in Chicago, known as CAIR-Chicago. And I'm joined today by colleagues, other organizations that work to uphold our First Amendment rights, our freedoms in this country, and elected officials who are doing the same. We are here to react to the recent abduction, essentially, of a legal resident of the United States, a student at Columbia University by the name of Mahmoud Khalil, whose crime apparently was to practice his First Amendment protected rights to free speech and expression and assembly on his university campus, decrying a genocide against his native people. This apparently angered and upset political leaders in our country who believed that they had the right to enforce their opinions, their personal political opinions on this individual and on our nation by abducting him and weaponizing ICE and weaponizing government agencies to penalize him and teach him a lesson. They're doing all this in the name of national security, which further exacerbates the problem. I think this is throwing red meat to a base, but at the same time, it is defrauding the American people about what is happening. There's no security issue in a student doing what America has an oath to protect. Every elected official is to protect our constitutional rights. This person practiced his constitutional rights, and so the national security issue is nothing but a red herring. And what we're seeing today is a man who is basically languishing in some detention center somewhere. His wife, who is 8 months pregnant, doesn't know where he is, has been uprooted from his life simply for practicing his rights. I want to now call over to the podium Ed Yonka with the ACLU.
Thank you, Ahmed. My name is Ed, E.D., last name is Yonka, Y-O-H-N-K-A. I'm the Director of Communications and Public Policy for the ACLU of Illinois. We are less than 2 months into Donald Trump's second term, and there's two things that we can say with absolute certainty. The first is Donald Trump thinks he is a king. And the second is that he's never read the Constitution. If you read the Constitution of the United States, it clearly says that all people in the United States, all persons, have the right to speak freely, to oppose government policy, to speak in the way that they want. What Mr. Khalil was doing was engaging in his First Amendment rights as a person in the United States, and he is now being punished because people in power don't like what he said. That is not American, it is not what makes America great, and it is not constitutional. And it's why the ACLU and our affiliate in New York have joined the legal team to help ensure, first of all, that he is not deported, and secondly, that he is released from this detention. You know, I want to point out a couple of ironies. First of all, today in the hearing, it was revealed that Mr. Khalil has not even been permitted yet to meet with his attorneys in private to discuss his case. That's despite the fact that the President of the United States, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, the Secretary of State, and whatever title Tom Homan has, have all gone out in public on television and talked about this matter. That is not the way constitutional law and principles are intended to work. And the second thing is that just less than 2 months ago in his inauguration, the president promised that they were restoring in his administration free speech and the First Amendment. I don't think they would recognize it if it walked up and introduced itself to them, because what is clearly happening here is a violation of constitutional rights. It will be, like others that this administration has advanced in these 2 months, confronted, and in the end, I think Mr. Khalil's First Amendment rights will be vindicated. Thank you very much.
Mahmoud's case is not just about one individual. It is whether the White House can summarily abduct legal residents and deport them for holding personal or political opinions that might not please the current ruler. It is very much about the heart and soul of American democracy, freedoms, and everything that sets this country apart and above the despotic world. Basically, as someone who was born in Egypt and immigrated to this country, what I'm seeing today harkens back to Assad's Syria, to Russia, to China, perhaps to Israel. This is what they do there. It's not what America does. It's not where you have a ruler who doesn't like what someone's doing and then they basically weaponize the government to wipe them off the face of the earth, to send them behind the sun, as we say. I want to now bring up to the podium Fred Tsao with the Illinois Coalition for Immigrant and Refugee Rights.
Thank you, Ahmed. My name is Fred Tsao, F-R-E-D. Last name is T as in Thomas, S as in Samuel, A as in Apple, O as in Orange, T-S-A-O. I'm the Senior Policy Counsel with the Illinois Coalition for Immigrant and Refugee Rights. And I'd like to address in particular the immigration implications of Mahmoud Khalil's case. So instead of respecting and unifying families, ICE is separating Mr. Khalil from his US citizen wife, who is 8 months pregnant. Instead of honoring the rights that immigrants and everybody else enjoys under our US Constitution, Mr. Khalil is being targeted by federal immigration authority and law enforcement authorities for exercising his freedom of speech. Instead of operating in full transparency, these same federal authorities are pushing out falsehoods, such as stating that they were revoking Mr. Khalil's student visa, which he does not have, and shipping him off to an immigration prison hundreds of miles from his home. Instead of providing the due process that we all are entitled to under our Constitution, and particularly in cases involving green card holders like Mr. Khalil, ICE has tried to summarily deport Mr. Khalil and was blocked only by an emergency court order. Mr. Khalil's case represents a major weaponization of the federal immigration system to target people whom this administration views as threats. If his deportation proceeds, it will send a chilling precedent for other people in the United States who have every right to live, work, and speak freely in this country. Mr. Khalil's situation, unfortunately, is of a piece with numerous other attacks on our immigrant communities, including ramping up arrest operations, shutting down resettlements for vulnerable refugees, ending processes for people to seek asylum, as well as existing protections for hundreds of thousands of people who are already in the United States who would face danger if they are deported, and more recently, even the threat that their information as taxpayers can be used against them. As much as this administration may try to scare us into silence, we cannot give in to fear. As this administration's border czar has said very well, people here in Chicago are very well educated about our rights. We will continue to exercise our rights, including our rights to speak, and in particular to speak in support of Mr. Khalil and others who are being targeted for exercising those rights. Thank you.
Now, as mentioned, the most important speech that needs protection is speech we may not like. Speech we like and agree with by nature will be protected. But to have true protections of freedoms, it must be for those freedoms that practice and that articulate positions that we may not agree with, and by we, I mean those who might be in power. And so this is a true test to the strength of our democracy and what it means to be free in America. Recently, we had J.D. Vance himself from the White House lecturing European leaders about the rolling back of freedom of speech in Europe. This apparently was only a media circus, because apparently he only believes in freedom of speech when it comes to far-right articulation and not when it comes to other forms of articulation that he disagrees with. I want to now bring up to the podium Mohammed Sankari with USPCN to discuss the effect of this policy and this fear-mongering on student life and student protests.
Thank you, Ahmed. My name is Mohammed Sankari, Muhammad Sankari. I'm a member and organizer with the U.S. Palestinian Community Network. And I want to be very, very clear in the beginning by saying that Mahmoud Khalil is a hero of our community. Mahmoud Khalil is a hero of human rights activists. Mahmoud Khalil is a hero of immigrant justice activists. Mahmoud Khalil is a hero for students and for everyone who believes in human rights and dignity for all, full stop. And yes, Mahmoud Khalil is a Palestine activist. Mahmoud Khalil is a refugee who by nature of being Palestinian, was forced to be born in a refugee camp, and who raised himself up from nothing, taught himself English, and came to one of the most prestigious universities in this country, Columbia University, and joined the international movement to end the genocide against his people that was unfolding, that was funded, financed, and provided political cover by our very own government. And by virtue of that, he has become enemy number one of the US government. Obviously, we're here to join everyone in the demands that Mahmoud needs to be freed immediately, and that the deportation case against him needs to be immediately dropped. I also would be remiss if I did not point out the fact that what happened to Mahmoud, unfortunately, is not in and of itself unique. It is not unique that DHS kidnaps people in the middle of the night. It is not unique that they lie to their families. It is not unique that they take them hundreds of miles away and disappear them in immigration detentions. This is something that the undocumented community and the immigrant community as a whole has been facing in this country for decades, especially under Democratic administrations, not only under far-right administrations like the current one that we have. Mahmoud Khalil's case calls on all of us to take action to protect not only Mahmoud, to protect not only Palestinian students, but to protect immigrant communities, to protect all vulnerable people. Because today they have come for Mahmoud Khalil, absolutely. And tomorrow it will be someone else, and after that it will be someone else, and after that it will be someone else. If we allow them to criminalize, kidnap, disappear, and deport Mahmoud Khalil, then no one in any of our communities is safe. And the last thing that I just want to say is a message to the Democratic Party leadership in this country. We do not forget that in 2023, this country passed, the Senate passed by unanimous vote, a statement decrying Students for Justice in Palestine for their alleged anti-Semitism. The Democratic Party held a majority in the Senate at that time. Every single Democratic senator voted for that resolution, and that laid the stage for what we see today. If they want to atone for the sin of smearing our community and smearing our movement under the horrific lies of anti-Semitism and racism, they can start by doing everything in their power. Put down the paper paddle boards and instead do everything in your power to free Mahmoud Khalil and make sure that no one else faces what he's facing today. Thank you.
Before I bring up our last speaker this afternoon, I want to point out that I think American taxpayers should be angry. If not angry as Americans, red-blooded, patriotic Americans, because our Constitution is being undermined, our freedoms are being undermined, they should be angry because here we have a government that is basically wagging the dog. We have a situation where the president likes to talk about criminals and gangs and drug kingpins, corrupt oligarchs, and none of this is what we're spending time pursuing in terms of our justice, but rather we're going after students on college campuses who are peacefully protesting and expressing their genuinely held beliefs on a matter. That is what is making headlines in America right now. That is why you're here with your cameras. That is why we are here behind the microphones. It is expending immense resources in this country down a rabbit hole where we don't even need to go, where real issues are left untouched in terms of real national security and real community and street security. And here we are talking about a student. I want to now bring up to the podium a leader here in the Chicagoland area, 25th Ward Alderman Byron Sigcho-Lopez, who will discuss with you an announcement. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Ahmed. And first, let me thank ACLU of Illinois, ICER, CAIR, and as well as USPCN for protecting and standing up for our First Amendment rights and for truly upholding the Constitution. As elected officials, as a representative of an immigrant community, we have the obligation to stand up when we have the attempt to undermine First Amendment rights. What has happened to Mahmoud Khalil, it is unprecedented in our country. It is a call of action not only on the court system, not only on the judicial system, not only in the streets, but in our legislative bodies. as an elected official who have sworn to uphold the Constitution, we cannot allow that this attempt to criminalize First Amendment rights goes unnoticed and doesn't go without a big fight to protect our Constitution, to protect First Amendment rights, to protect our democracy. Mahmoud Khalil was not detained, was not abducted for a crime. He was detained and he was abducted because of his words. That is as simple and as clear as it is when we talk about the First Amendment rights. This cannot be normalized in our country. We did not elect kings. Kings are not elected. And kings impose their will and impose their views with violence and violations of the Constitution. That's why today in the City Council, we are calling and we are introducing a resolution to call for the immediate release of Mahmoud Khalil by the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agents, ICE, and for an investigation into the circumstances surrounding his detention. We are extremely concerned about the continuous attack on the constitutional rights of our residents, the reign of terror that is taking on our streets, families are being separated, when we see the atrocities that we continue to see when a green card holder is abducted by the state without any explanation, and today it still remains detained in a Louisiana prison. That is a horrible and an unprecedented event that we cannot go without challenge. Today, I spoke with the chair of the Human and Health Relations in the City of Chicago, Chairwoman Rosana Rodriguez Sanchez, and we expect to hear this item at the next City Council meeting of the Health and Human Relations Committee on March 18th at 10 a.m. This is a serious attempt to undermine our democracy, and we have an obligation to stand up for constitutional rights of all our residents. We are extremely concerned also of what's happening on our universities, where we are seeing ICE presses without a warrant, and compliance by our universities has supposed to also uphold our Constitution and demand that a warrant is provided before any action is taken. So today I am grateful and honored to be here with organizations that are truly protecting civil rights, our constitutional rights, and First Amendment rights. As an immigrant and as a father, I'm extremely concerned that this will be normalized, and I urge every single elected official, no matter what the party is on, to take action immediately to the release of Mahmoud Khalil and to defend our First Amendment rights in our country. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Before I close this out with asking for your questions, I would be remiss not to make this last reflection. And I speak now for myself and my organization only. You know, we're very straight shooters, and we speak as clearly and directly as we can. What angers me most about this fiasco, in addition to the obvious points we have made about First Amendment violations, etc., is the defrauding of the American people. Here you have a president who is claiming to the American people that by chasing after this young man and his family, he's making us safer. In reality, the only reason why he's doing so is because he received gifts in kind to do this sort of thing. Now we have a president who's doing quid pro quo, corrupt politics. He's received $100 million from Miriam Adelson, to whom she was promised that there would be student clampdowns against those who protest Israel, that there would be an annexation of Palestinian land in the Middle East. And all of that is to serve the interests of a foreign genocidal government, and it has no service of interest to our own American people or our country. That should anger the American people. We should be alert and aware and knowledgeable enough of the issues to understand when we're being defrauded, because that puts our country in true peril, not the protests of a young person on a sidewalk. With that, I want to open it up to questions if you have any. Or if there's anything else anybody else would like to add?
Just for the
Yes.
interview, you mentioned that you guys were joining the legal team in New York. Is there any representatives from Chicago that would be going to join on?
No, folks from our national office in New York, as well as from the NYCLU, which is in New York as well, will be part of the legal team. I think, as you've heard, we think this is an important precedent to push back against The president used his social media platform, 2 weeks ago to say that he would decide which protests on campus were legal and illegal and then hold students accountable. We now see what that looks like, and I think that's really what why we think this case is important enough to join.
Also, notice in the retorts and the counter arguments and the justifications that are coming out of the White House that basically there is no claim that there is any legal issue insofar as Mahmoud Khalil. As a matter of fact, White House officials conceded fully that this is not a legal matter, but a quote-unquote national security matter, and yet here we are in the court of law. So there is some contradiction there. In addition to Trump and his own pronouncements, of course, on social media, where else, you have Mike Johnson from the House also essentially echoing every word and sentiment that the president has made on this matter, which should further concern the American people. Here we have a supposed separation of powers where we can have a balance and check situation, and he's just basically cheerleading the exact same points and lying and saying that this is about the law. Again, no law was broken insofar as this person getting a green card. Mark Rubio, and I'll close with this, he also said in his comments that basically a green card is not a right. It's not a privilege. Well, we know that. Mahmoud Khalil knows that. Mahmoud Khalil did not receive his green card because it was his right to receive it. He didn't receive it because he was privileged. He received it because he went through all the legal loopholes all the legal criteria that every single American pursues to get a green card. And so they're saying a nothing burger. And we have to be able to see through this cloud of attacks against immigrants who are going through the process. We talk about illegal immigrants, quote unquote, undocumented. Here you have a legal resident. It's not about legal and illegal. It's about whether you're Palestinian or Latino or Black. It's about whether you're Muslim. It's whether you're Arab. It's about identity. It's not about your legal status. And that's the problem with the broken immigration system. And now the weaponization of ICE. Thank you very much.
Yeah.